to Get Known, Be Seen Web TV. I'm your host, Trish Springsteen, and the Web TV is all about what it says, Get Known, Be Seen. We have experts that come on to show you how you can leverage your business, shine a light on your book, get up there and be seen. We also have people that come on who want to actually get known, be seen. So they may have a course, they might be mentors, they might be coaches, or in this particular case, there'll be authors sharing their book. Now, part of our coming up episodes on Web TV, I'm absolutely excited. We're going to have highlights of the Get Known, Be Seen Expo from 2018. And to join me in co-hosting these highlights, please welcome Deborah Fay. Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
Awesome to have you here. And
thank you.
This particular interview, we're going to be speaking with one of our most awesome authors that joined us on that Expo workshop in 2018. Welcome along, Clemett. Hi.
Yay.
Hi, ladies. Awesome to be here. Wonderful to be part of it. It's great stuff. I love what you do.
Wonderful. We love what you do too, darling. Love following you.
Absolutely delighted.
Stalking me.
Stalking you, yes, stalking you.
It's good to stalk. That's what we want. We want stalking, because if we don't have stalking, then we won't have people shining their light and being seen. So stalking is what we're after in nice ways.
Is that the ultimate of getting known and being seen, being stalked?
It's not.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting because there's an online marketer that I work with on her personal brand, and she said to me once, Lauren, if you don't have a hater a day, you're not doing enough. You're not out there enough. So I thought, oh, well, that's all right. Then I'll continue doing what I'm doing.
That's something to aspire to, isn't it?
Have a hater a day. Wow.
Hater a day. Awesome.
But I'm not sure that stalking actually equates to hating. See, stalking can be people who think you're an expert and are wanting to follow you to find out more about your expertise and to find out, but don't want to connect just yet. And I think we should be having some of the stalkers of the good kind, because they're the people who are searching out and finding us. And once they've really bought into our like, know and trust of who we are, then they become our potential clients. So I'm happy with stalkers.
Then they're our groupies.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it, Trish? And what you said is so right. People want to know, like, and trust you before they do any work with you. And it's even more so in this fabulous interweb world that we have where, like you said, Deborah, you see what everybody's up to, but it's not until you've had 3 or 4 or sometimes even 10 exposures to their really great tips or insight or their generosity before you go, actually, now I'm prepared to ask them, can they help me? So important in the digital landscape that people get to know you.
Awesome. And going on from getting to know you, one of the things I want to speak with you about is, what was your journey like to becoming a published author, to get those books out?
Well, it's an interesting one. In fact, I was just filling out an interview questionnaire for a podcast I'm going on shortly about all sorts of stuff to do with business. And they asked me, one of the questions was, what would you tell your 10-year-old self? And it's quite funny, actually, because when I was around 10, I was told I had word blindness and that I would never be able to read or write properly. I had dyslexia. And the teacher, thankfully, it sounds like a horrible thing for a teacher to say to someone at that age, but he was awesome. He knew that I worked really well on negative psychology. Anything someone tells me I can't do, I'm going to damn well prove you wrong. So he was perfect in telling me that, I was never going to be able to do this, because it absolutely made me want to prove him wrong. So I threw myself into reading. I was reading 10 to 12 books a month. My vocabulary took off. Still dyslexic, still can't spell, but today now I've got Grammarly, which is awesome. But if I could tell my 10-year-old self, who had this self-conscious, oh my goodness, I'm disabled in some way and I'm not good enough, then I would eventually become a best-selling author and I would be able to, inspire people around the world with what I wrote and what I did. I'm sure it would have made my life a lot easier as a 10-year-old.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love someone who's got a bit of gumption, tell me what I can't do and I'll show you what I can do.
Absolutely. Let me just prove it to you. Yeah. So I enjoyed writing and creative writing, but not as much as I probably could have, because I was so self-conscious about my spelling. And even in later years, when I worked in advertising agencies, I remember one of my bosses saying to me, Lauren, you really do need to spell check your emails before you send them out. And I would say to her, look, I'm emailing printers and production people. They don't care. They just want to know an order or whatever. And she said, no, they judge you based on your spelling. They judge you based on your communication. So that was a good lesson for me as a young adult in the industry, just to think that, yeah, you do need to be aware of the fact that, and I'm not a grammar police, but I also hate it when I see there, and there used the wrong way, and, or your and so on. And it does, unfortunately, we do as human beings tend to judge books by their covers. We judge people by what we see of them. And it's not till you get to know someone you realise, well, actually there's a story behind it. Not using dyslexia as an excuse, it's just one of the things I have to deal with. So it's interesting as a dyslexic author to have had that journey.
So what actually drove you to write your first book? So we know what's driven you to move forward, like with communication and get that right. But what actually drove you to write the first book?
My first book was actually not a business book. It was about a health issue. It was about endometriosis, which is something that I suffered from since when I was 16 years old. I basically had painful periods my entire life. And all sorts of horrible, nasty things, still having to deal with it, even leading up to blooming menopause. I'm now at the other end of the scale and I'm still having to deal with it. But I moved country and I found a nutritional supplement, and I found a different way of approaching endometriosis from a couple of people who taught me about what I put in my mouth. And it changed completely. I basically got rid of my own endometriosis. I had nowhere near as much pain, and I just thought, this is crazy. In 25 years, no doctor has ever told me about this, and more women need to know. So that really encouraged me to write my first book. I happened to do a writing course at the same time because I wasn't sure what to do. I just moved countries. I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to start my own advertising agency again. It was far too stressful, but I wanted to do something to help others. So it timed in beautifully that I'd learned about writing books and I had this story I wanted to share. I read Lisa Cabot's liver cleansing diet book. I followed Dr. Libby Weaver with her Rushing Women's Syndrome and all these things that really related to what I was doing. And I got a person in the Philippines to help me write my first book, which was awesome. And it's still out there. I wrote it under a pen name because I didn't want to become the endometriosis queen. It wasn't I wasn't passionate about fronting that. I was really passionate about at least sharing my story, so that if there were some women out there trying everything like I had and getting nowhere, they at least had a little bit of knowledge and advice that they could go and find out a bit more for themselves. And it's been still available on Amazon, still sells. I don't do any marketing. It's just one of those books. It's got great reviews and it's just one of those things.
Well done. Yeah.
Brilliant. Look, we've looked at one of the biggest challenges, I think you would say, that you had to overcome, which is your dyslexia, which has actually become not a challenge but a bonus for you because that's the movement. But what other challenges did you have to overcome to get those books done?
Well, that first book that I wrote, I mentioned I used a person from the Philippines to help me do the research for the book, and I then got her research and I then wrote it and so on. And then I got her to edit it and check it and proofread it and so on. I discovered later on, once it had been published, when it first came out, that they had basically copied and pasted some of the content from someone's website. And then there was legal letters and all sorts of things. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't even know that was... And of course, I don't know is not a good enough defense. So I basically had to take my book completely off the shelves, go through it, get rid of the chapters, pull everything out that this person had put in there that was basically using somebody else's content and plagiarizing, and write those chapters again. So that was a big challenge for me, to think all I wanted to do was help people with this book. And because I hadn't chosen my outsource correctly, or I hadn't had the ability to double check what they'd done or whatever it was, all these little lessons that you learn as a new author, made me feel awful about that idea. Because being a branding person, being in advertising, I know how plagiarism can be absolutely disgraceful, and it's really something that you don't want to be doing to anybody at any time. So that was a big challenge for me, to realise that I had done that, not knowingly, but I'd done that with my book, and it set me back with my confidence for quite a while, until I eventually found a really good ghostwriter and editor who checked out, and I work with him all the time now. And we wrote, I think we've written 8 books together now, and he's done all the editing and the checking and everything else for me. But that was the biggest challenge, I think, Trish, was overcoming my own fear factor. That was this correct? Was what I was putting out into the marketplace, like having a baby, isn't it? And you put them out into the world, and you know it's going to get judged, and you know that people are going to read it and question you, and it's your opinion, and I'm not a doctor, and all these sorts of things, you know, the self-confidence that is constantly challenging you. I guess, Trish, it wasn't until I wrote books about what I do for a living that I really started to feel confident about what was in my books, because it was more about what I'm the specialist in rather than something that had happened to me in my life.
So congratulations for pushing through that. Sorry to Trish. I just want to acknowledge that so important to push through that, and that is one of the biggest barriers for all aspiring authors, is pushing through all the self-doubt and, you know, the identity stuff around that. That's not me. I'm not an author. You know, being told when they were young, you're not creative, you can't do this. It's just crazy.
Why would anyone want to read your story? What makes you think it's so important? Yeah, absolutely. Horrible things.
Yeah. And great that you shared that experience, because how many other people are out there actually, you know, getting help? People using ghostwriters, for example. You know, you've got to be really careful about who you work with, don't you?
Absolutely. And getting an editor that you know will double check the content and see if it's anywhere else online and has the processes to be able to do that. Because, I mean, the internet is so full of content. You know, you could spend hours trying to research your book to make sure that it's not got any plagiarised information in there. And let's be honest, there really there's no more any original ideas. We've all heard something and taken it on board and then regurgitating it in our own way. But there's a fine line, isn't there, between, look, this is what I think, and this is just completely copied from somebody else. So, yeah, you've got to work with someone who knows their stuff.
Absolutely.
So, Lauren, how have you actually leveraged your writing? So you haven't actually leveraged what you wrote about with the endometriosis, but you have leveraged, and you actually plan to leverage what you write about around the branding, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a way that the endometriosis book is leveraged in the way that it just makes money, and every month I get a paycheck from Amazon, which is nice. But I have, as you say, I could have created courses, I could have done speaking, all sorts of things, but I knew it wasn't my passion to do that. So with my business book, of course, that's been completely leveraged. So it's now it wasn't ever written as just, hey, here's a book to read. It was always going to be a practical guidebook that my training and my online courses and my mentoring and my whole platform has come out of. So every time I'm asked to speak, there's contents that I share in a 30-minute presentation or an hour-long masterclass or whatever it is that leads directly back into my book. So it cross-pollinates, if you like, Deborah, into book sales versus course sales versus personal branding, the whole lot. So it really is, additional to that, of course, is always the credibility that you've got a book, that you've actually gotten over yourself and taken the time and invested in creating a book. And if it's a bestseller, that's even better credibility, because then you know that people are buying it. People actually want to read what's in it. They're finding it worthy. So leveraging it from a business point of view, certainly from a personal branding point of view, which is what I'm all about, having your own book is absolutely vital.
So
agreed.
I think that's absolutely agreeable in that as well, because it's all about being known, being seen, and the book can do that. So which brings me to, how is being published work for you? I'd like to actually change that to more like, how would you recommend, from a branding specialist, how would publishing work for people who are just starting out, new people who have authored? How would it work for them?
How would it work in terms of how they go about doing it? Or, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a number of different ways to do it. And to be honest with you, I can only explain to you from my own personal experiences. I've not used a publisher. I've always self-published, but at the moment I am working with, as I say, with a ghostwriter and editor who's also a publisher now in the States. And we are looking, again, at that credibility factor, that when you open a book and it says that it's published by and it's the name of the author, whether there's credibility there or whether you're better off to have published by and have a publisher's name there. Because, again, that has a bit more of there's an independent person who thinks that this book's worthy of being published. It's not just my own opinion that I'm putting out there. So I'm definitely suggesting you don't have to go and sign a massive, $40,000 publishing deal with somebody. Don't let that be a barrier to people to stop them from writing a book. You certainly can self-publish, But I would suggest you look at the likes of yourselves, Deborah and Trish, who've done this before, who've got the rungs on the board, they know what the industry is like, they know the shortcuts. I definitely would suggest that you get someone who is not just a publisher, they understand writing as well. And the reason for that is that anything they do with publishing, they need to understand your voice. They need to understand the personality of the author, because otherwise it comes across as disingenuous, that you've got this marketing out there, or you've got at the front of your book, or the foreword, or the blue, it just doesn't read like the internal part of the book.
You just don't connect with the author.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's no personality in it, you get the content. Oh, yeah, I could have got that over there. It's got to be personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, Trish, it's something I hadn't thought about before. I noticed it on your screen as well. When I first bought when Selling You, which is my major book, was first published in 2014, it didn't even have my name on the cover, and it didn't even have my photograph on the cover. I was so self-conscious about, am I really an expert in this? I mean, yeah, I've been working for 25 years in brand management, and I was still questioning myself. I just
don't see you as someone who's self-conscious. Honestly, I've only known you the last 12 months, and that is just not how I would describe you.
Oh, look, we've all got that itty-bitty shitty committee going on up there telling us that we're worthless, so everyone deals with that. So, but it took me 3 editions before I eventually got the guts to put my photo on the front cover. So I know, I understand, it's not always the case. You don't always have to put your photo on the front cover. In fact, the next books that I'm writing don't have photos on the front cover. So, but a publisher will give you the confidence to make the right decisions. Whether they tell you, look, this is a book about you. People want to see you. They want to know you. If you're a coach or a mentor or someone that wants to create their own personal brand, they probably need to see you on the cover. Whereas if it's more of an industry book, or you want it to stand out for the fact that it's got a really, like I know Seth Godin has some really interesting covers where he either doesn't put anything on the cover, or he's just got a yellow cover, or, he does some really weird and wacky things with his covers. But a publisher...
He's a bit weird and wacky.
Yeah, he is. But a publisher will be... You know how you'd never get a great result if you don't have any dissent? If you don't have anybody actually questioning you or pushing you or challenging you, you just have a very mediocre average result. Whereas if you've got a publisher or somebody guiding you or helping you, they're always going to be... that they have the luxury of sitting on the outside looking in. And when you write your own book, you can get far too close to it to just not be able to see what's required.
That's actually a really good point. And it also goes to mentoring, because that's how I see mentoring as well, and why I think whether you're doing a book or whether a business or just getting yourself to all your act together, mentorings do that. And when you get good mentoring, you get good mentors, they push you and look at it from the outside. And I think that's where publisher becomes a bit of a mentor.
Absolutely. And you've got a good one when you feel like you're being mentored, which is awesome. So I know when I tell people, look, it's going to take you 3 years to create your standout personal brand, they all look at me and go, oh my God, 3 years, it's a long time. It took me 4, because I was working on my own brand. It's always hard working on your own book and your own content and your own creativity. It is so vital that you get someone you can trust who really understands the purpose behind your book, your personality, your why, and your passion, to partner with you on it so that they can help just ask you those questions that make your book even better than you thought it could be.
Pull that out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Extract it from you.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that.
Like a big... So I'm loving what I'm hearing from you, Lauren. Absolutely everything that you've been saying so far. Trish and I both loved working with you last year at the Get Known Be Seen workshop, and then putting the book together. We'd like to know what you got out of that experience.
It was a lot of fun for a start. I love being surrounded by creative people anyway. I've always worked in the creative industry. That was a lot of fun. I love doing the Facebook Live at the start, which had everybody sort of going, oh my God, especially when you've potentially got a room of people who aren't confident about getting their book out there. And here I am throwing you into a Facebook Live. And
I love it.
But I think the biggest thing I got out of it, Deborah, was the collaboration that's possible. I mean, this is a collaborative program and a collaborative book that's been put together, but the collaboration that's possible when you get a group of like-minded authors who all have the same passion, which is just to try to encourage other people, to inspire them and to motivate them, that they can do it. that, you know, everybody knows they've got a book in them, or, you know, you don't want to get to your deathbed and go, if only I'd written that book, you know.
So,
it's a legacy, isn't it, Deborah? A book is a legacy. It's something that's going to hang around
and
long
we don't
after.
talk enough about legacy. We really don't. Generally speaking, we don't think enough about it. We don't talk enough about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I hope that the message that we got across in that expo was you don't even have to write a whole book. Just collaborate with other authors and write a section of a book or a chapter of a book or part of a book. Just be part of that. And there's lots of those. That's one thing I'd really like, and a change I've seen happening in the last probably 10 years is these collaborative programs of authors getting together and writing books and joining their forces together, joining their databases together, reaching more people and just making it happen, rather than that whole, oh my God, I've got to write 50,000 words before I've got a book in me. You know, just not letting that hold people back.
Yeah, well done, well said. And my passion, I guess, is having stumbled across print on demand. We don't have to wait now for permission to write a book. We can give ourselves that permission and empower ourselves. And yes, it's really good if you work with someone that's got the right skills, but don't wait till something's perfect to get it out there. Just give yourself permission and go.
Yeah, there's no such thing as perfect. It'll never happen if you
Oh, I know, never will. And I want to add to what you were saying too about having a similar passion, all the authors. I also want to say we had a similar depth of passion as well. So all very passionate about getting our messages out there, and I really appreciated that in the other authors. And I always appreciate that about Trish. Yes, really awesome. Yeah, great place to be in, isn't it?
On the note about not being perfect, the first book that I published, and I did it print on demand through Amazon to get some samples to physically have them for a photo shoot. And on the first page of my book was 2 spelling errors. So, you know, just, you know, that was before I got the editor to help me and do it properly. But that's the thing, and there's no such thing as perfect. It's just, you can never achieve that, and that's worthless waiting for it. You're better off to get out there and improve it as you go.
And with print on demand, you can do it.
Yeah.
Quite easily, yeah.
If you wait for perfect, you're going to get stagnation because you're just not going to move forward. And then your book's not going to get unlocked, and that's what you really need to get it out there.
Yeah, get the message out.
So from all that knowledge and what we've been discussing, and it's been absolutely awesome information for our viewers, what 2 tips would you give for someone who wants to write a book and be an author?
The first tip I'd give is to always start with your purpose. So what's the purpose of your book? Before you even think about the content or the audience or what sort of story, or should it be fiction or non-fiction? How am I going to market it? All that, what's going to go on the front cover? The number one thing I believe that people need to figure out is, what's the purpose of my book? Is it just to get your story out there? I know I helped my mum and dad publish a book on Amazon about their travels around New Zealand. It's called Motor Caravanning Around New Zealand. I don't know whether anyone's read it, but that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was, it was like a journal that they had that they just wanted to put into a book, so that if they had friends who wanted to find out more about their journey around New Zealand, that they can go. And I think my dad had grandiose ideas of it paying for his retirement. But, you know, the purpose really was to journal of their travels so that their friends and family could download it and read about it and so on. But if you want to create it as a business or a course, or be seen as the go-to specialist, or create credibility, that's another process that you've got to look at. You need to think about how you're going to publish it, how you're going to reach a larger database. You need to get someone writing your foreword who's also got 10 or 20,000 people on their database, so you can expand your reach. All sorts of other things that you need to think about based on the purpose. If it's an autobiography or something about health, a health issue you've had like cancer or endometriosis with me, again, is it about just motivating and helping people who might be going through the same thing with you? And then the next question is, what's the outcome at the end of the book if that's the case? How do they get in touch with you? How do they find out more? So how can you really help them? So that would be my number one tip, would be make sure you've got your purpose.
Be conscious. Yeah.
Yeah, just make a choice, right? Rather than, it also will help drive you on, won't it, Deborah? If you don't have a passion and a purpose, you will give up.
An outcome. You need an outcome.
An outcome.
Yeah.
As I say in the speaking journey, if you don't know where you're going to wander in the wilderness. and you'll take your listeners with you. So if you don't know where you're going with your book, you're going to wander in the wilderness, and the readers are just going to go, my God.
Oh, my God, wandering in the wilderness.
Yeah.
The great vision, yes.
Yeah. And the second tip I'd give is that writing your book actually isn't the hard part. The harder part is marketing and selling your book. I know, Deborah, you were talking before we recorded that you sell the most books just by having them with you everywhere you go when you speak and so on. Absolutely. So, but you've got to get to grips with, okay, once I've written this book, how am I going to actually get it out there? Because there's so many stories of people who've written them. They've got 20,000 copies printed and 4 of them your mum bought and the rest of them are in the garage. You know, so how are you going to get it out there? You need to be building your brand at the same time that you're writing your book, creating a following, getting those stalkers and the haters, you know, looking at getting people to read a couple of chapters and give you some early reviews, you know, do some pre-orders, understand the marketing aspect behind your book as well. Are you going to have a book launch? Is it going to be a one-off event or is it going to be a web event? You know, all these sorts of things you need to think about before you actually write your book is how am I going to sell this? Who's going to buy it? Why will they buy it? How will I offer them more support if it's a guidebook? You know, why will they buy more from me? You know, what sort of website will I need? All those sorts of things. You need to consider those just so that you can format your book properly. Because it's pointless thinking you want to create something that's a hardcover that you're going to get signed whenever you speak and you only publish it as an ebook. So, you know, you've got to really think about, as Deborah said, the outcome. What's the outcome at the end that you're really after?
Thank you.
Very, very cool.
Brilliant tips. Thank you.
So have you written a book about how to be an Amazon bestseller?
I've written a guidebook about that, and it's something that my clients actually use. So it's a process that we go through with them.
While they're branding themselves.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually available on Amazon. It'd be interesting to have it.
That's interesting.
It's like the chicken before the egg syndrome, isn't it? But no, it's definitely something that I run courses and trainings for clients who want to do that as well. But it's more about their personal brand, and a book's an extension of that.
Yeah. I so agree. And especially in the types of businesses that we're in, where our businesses are actually an extension of who we are and what we're passionate about in life. So, yes, and then the book's just a way to get our message out even further, isn't it?
Yep, definitely. And doing it with credibility.
Carries great credibility, absolutely. So what is the name of the book that you've got a book there with you? Is it here? You like to promote, yes.
Selling You is the book with my photo on the front cover, which is
what a good-looking photo that is.
Isn't that nice? My fabulous local photo. So it's a practical guidebook. I get a lot of people saying to me that they have scribbled on it, they've written on it, there's highlighter through it.
That's such a compliment.
Isn't it? So it's dog-eared. It got wet in the pool when I was on holiday because I couldn't put it down. You know, all these people reading it in the car. So it's a practical guide. I expect it to come back completely battered from people, which is awesome. And at the moment, it also goes with one of these, which is an extension of it, which is when you read the tips and that's how do I actually implement it. So I've got a planner that goes with it now. So again, I never wrote this with an expectation that it would develop into something else, but that's exactly what's happened because people do read this and they say, this is awesome, Lauren. Can you help me? How do I do this? I know I need to do this. I know what I'm doing now, but how do I get it out there? So, yeah, it's been an awesome book to share.
So where can they contact you, Lauren, to do more?
You can actually go to my website, Ultimate Business Propeller. Search my name on Google and you'll find me all over the place. I should be, given I've got a great personal brand. Surprise, surprise. You can also go to a website called Selling You Books or just type Selling You into Amazon and it's on there as well. So lots of different places you can get hold of it.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us, with our viewers, some absolutely brilliant tips on not just publishing but on marketing and getting over your own mindsets and limiting beliefs. And Lauren's walked the talk. She's been there, she's done that, and this is where she's gone from not wanting to put her face on the cover to
I know
everywhere. So thank you, Lauren. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lauren.
The link will be below. You've been watching Get Known, Be Seen Web TV. This has been our special for this month on the highlights of the Get Known, Be Seen Expo that we did in 2018. And that'll be goodbye from me and goodbye from my co-host.
Goodbye from me.
And thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been great talking with you, darling.
Thank you.
been awesome.